Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast, the essential podcast for fathers navigating the complex but rewarding journey of raising daughters. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I'm thrilled to bring you honest conversations with dads and daughters, sharing heartfelt stories, actionable advice, and real daughter perspectives that will help you be the best girl dad you can be. Hello and welcome back to Girl Dad, the podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and today we have a very important topic that a lot of dads ask a lot of questions about, so I think you're going to really love this one. Today we are going to talk about dating and setting your daughter up for success in her relationships. Today we will go over 3 things. First, we'll talk about setting proper expectations for your daughter. Then we'll talk about healthy boundaries and establishing them as a father. And then third, we'll just go through a couple different hypothetical situations and how to navigate them, such as when your daughter is dating someone that you don't care for and when your daughter goes through a breakup. So first and foremost, let's talk about setting proper expectations. Your relationship with your daughter is the first relationship she will have with a man. And so this is the most important relationship when it comes to setting expectations for what dating should look like. So no pressure, okay? No, I know that's a daunting thought, but my biggest piece of advice is just to set the bar really high when it comes to her expectations. As a father who wants to set your daughter up for success in a relationship, you want her to be happy, you want her to be fulfilled, and really be with a man who treats her with respect and love. Well, what do you need to do? You need to do exactly that and make sure that she feels loved and respected and worthy of your time and attention, and set that bar high for her. Think about how you would want a man to treat her, and then try to do those kinds of things. Try to be that kind of man. Do you want her to date someone who opens the car door for her, who asks her out on dates, who brings her flowers, or makes sure that she is loved and cared for, and who listens to her when she is talking to them? Make sure that she feels like she is worthy of your time and attention so that she doesn't feel the need to get a guy's attention. I've heard a good analogy where it's like when you go into the market or grocery store. I always say market and people make fun of me. But when you go into the grocery store and you're really hungry, that's when you make the worst decisions, right? You come home with all the chips and ice cream and quick snacks and just anything because you're starving. Well, you don't want your daughter to date starving. You don't want her to not know what it feels like to have the right male attention and to be loved and to be appreciated and to be cared for. And then she goes into dating just desperate for any sort of male attention and ends up with the potato chip bag of a guy, right? Like that's not what you want for your daughter. And so you want to set her up for success by teaching her exactly what it looks like to be with a good man. And I talk to a lot of daughters about this too. There's a lot of guys who will try to court you as a woman, and you won't even entertain the idea if it's not up to the standards of your father, truly. The other thing is that when a daughter feels valued by her father, she won't feel the need to seek validation elsewhere. And this is where I think a lot of trouble comes into play when it comes to dating. A lot of girls do want to be validated because there's this feeling of, from the daughter's perspective, like, if a boy wants me, then I have value, I feel pretty, I feel desirable. And that kind of feeling is a really good feeling as a woman. You want to feel wanted, you want to feel loved, you want all these things naturally. It's psychologically embedded in us. And so when you don't feel valued by your father, your desire just becomes stronger, and you might try to find value with guys who don't actually give you value. The other thing related to, being worthy of your time and attention is, let's say you're always on your phone when your daughter's talking to you and she's really excited about something and you're not really paying full attention because you're also answering an email at the same time. If you're not giving her the attention that you think she's worthy of, then a lot of times we'll be in relationships where a man doesn't pay as much attention to her needs or her when she's talking. And I know that you don't want that for your daughter. I know you want her to be with somebody who really cares about her deeply, but all of your actions will play into kind of her story of who she is and what she deserves and what she should expect. So again, just to circle back to this common theme here, it is to just set the expectations really high for what she deserves in a man and how she should be treated by a man. The next piece of that is related to how you treat your partner. How you treat your partner is extremely important because women and girls are very observant. Whether you are speaking these things out loud or not, and it's just your actions, they will pick up on it. Women tend to be extremely intuitive, and even your young daughter can sense when things are off or when there's tension in the room. So, my other piece of advice related to setting proper expectations is set expectations for what she deserves based on how you treat your wife. And ultimately, what you are doing here is you are creating her reality. Everything that she observes between you and your partner is what she's going to expect in her relationship with her future partner. This is a very important relationship, and this is something that I will be talking about in future episodes, and this will be the only topic during that episode. We could talk for hours and hours about your relationship with your partner, how it affects the daughter, and just how to set yourself up for success in your romantic relationship. And so, since we will get into that more, and it is a very layered and complex and important topic, I do not want to just brush over it here, but I do want to mention that this is extremely important for how your daughter perceives her sense of reality when it comes to dating and expectations. So, the more you can treat your wife how you would want your daughter's husband to treat her, the better. In fact, I really do recommend that husbands and wives put each other before their children. And I know it's hard to do sometimes, especially when children are young and it feels like they need you the most and that the other person in your relationship can handle themselves better. But your children really want you to be strong. They want you to be happy with each other. They want to see love and they want to know that they're safe in this family. That's really what they want, and so if you wanna put them first, I would recommend putting your partner first. There's just so much science behind how children form a sense of security and confidence when their parents are happy with one another, and obviously, everyone goes through periods and days of fighting or disagreeing or blips in a relationship. That is absolutely normal, but it's how you let your kids see that and how you decide to navigate those situations, maybe behind closed doors or in a healthy way. You know, there's ways to have disagreements that are very healthy, and there's ways to have those same disagreements that are very unhealthy. And so we will absolutely be discussing all of this related to your romantic relationship in other episodes. But for now, I just think it's important to acknowledge that when it comes to dating and setting your daughter up for success in her relationships, she will learn so much from how you treat her and the love that she feels from you and how you treat your partner and what she observes in that relationship. Okay, next, let's talk about setting healthy boundaries for your daughter. I love the conversation around boundaries because I think it's a huge challenge for parents, not just husbands or fathers, but parents in general to help create healthy boundaries for their children where they don't feel like you give them no freedom, but there's also on the other end, there is such thing as too much freedom. And so I always think of it like when you're bowling and you want to hit as many pins as possible. Well, the easiest way to do that would be to put the bumpers up, right? And the ball might, hit the bumper a few times and go left and right or veer off this way, but you have a better chance of getting a strike or a spare. If you have the bumpers down, you might end up in the gutter. And if you don't bowl at all, then you definitely get no pins. So that's kind of the analogy that I like to use when it comes to setting healthy boundaries. But I also want to acknowledge that there's a lot of psychology behind how boundaries help make a daughter feel loved. The reason for this is that when a father has no boundaries and a daughter is allowed to do whatever she wants with whoever she wants, whenever she wants. Subconsciously, that signals to the daughter that she isn't really cared for. The dad really doesn't care that much about her. Because if he did care about her, he would care about her safety and her well being, and he would establish some rules in place or some boundaries that are set that care for her and respect her. And this is something that both my parents always did to me and my sisters. And we had some conversations around them because I would push back. I had straight A's and I was like, challenging them on why I wasn't able to do some things, go on a sleepover in San Diego or, whatever it was. And they would tell me that the reason I wouldn't be allowed to is because they loved me. And if they didn't love me, then they would let me do whatever I wanted. And it really made me think because, of course, I was still really annoyed and frustrated and maybe was upset at them or something if it did go that way where I didn't get my way. But I was also a little bit stubborn and wanted to get my way. I still like to get my way, but I was able to understand and respect them for their decisions, especially now as an adult looking back. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But it's also really hard to argue that as a child. As soon as they pull that one, you're kind of like, oh, dang it. So anyways, I think that's just really important to keep in mind that daughters want some boundaries. We want some bumpers, okay? But we don't want too many boundaries where we feel like you don't trust us or that we can't have responsibility because you said so. I think that's a big one. Anytime you pull the because I said so, it doesn't really do anything for the daughter. I think the more you can reason with her, especially when it comes to boys, like, here's why I have these boundaries, or, here's why you have to text me when you make it there, or, whatever those rules that you make up are. And again, I would like to call them boundaries, not rules. I think the more that a daughter feels like she has all these rules, the more likely that she might act against those rules. But if she has boundaries, she can kind of be guided in a way to make some mistakes, but she never ends up in the gutter. You know what I mean? Like, she might just hit one pin or two. So it's a healthier way to help her guide through life. I did have a lot of friends and acquaintances that I saw both ends of the spectrum. And I certainly saw daughters with parents who gave a lot of rules and a lot of boundaries and a lot of regulation. And I saw them do a lot of things to protest that, like sneak out or, do things they weren't supposed to that went against the rules because they didn't feel like they were fair at all. And so that's why I think that justifying your boundaries is really important. But I think having boundaries is also really important. On this note of boundaries, I think it's a great opportunity to establish an open door policy if you haven't already established this. This is kind of part of the boundary that you work in. I think being able to come to your parents and your father, especially, about anything is a beautiful feeling. Even if you never have to use it, just knowing that your dad says he has your back no matter what, and you can come to him for anything, that means the world. And it typically helps prevent issues from happening because you feel the security, you feel the support, you feel the love, and you might make better decisions accordingly. So I do want to note that there. On the topic of boundaries, another thing to note is helping your daughter create her own boundaries. So this is an exercise you can do with her really at any age with any type of conversation. But I think during the years that she may be dating, like say the teenage years, for example, it might be a really good time to help her establish what her boundaries are, especially when it comes to a partner. Like, what does she care most about? And when she's young, she might not know exactly. And that's part of what dating is for, right? Like, she really might learn something from every single person that she talks to or goes on a date with. And that's healthy. But the more she can really look internally and think about what she wants in a partnership, the more that she can intentionally date and not just, figure things out. She's not going into the market starving, right? She is being really intentional about choosing the right partner. Okay, The third thing we're going to talk about today is what to do in two specific situations. One, when you don't like her partner, and two, when she goes through a heartbreak. These are two very common scenarios that happen to dads, and they're scenarios that I think a lot of dads are worried about. So let's talk about them. Again, these are things that I think could be their own episode. I've also been doing some private consulting on these specific topics, so happy to help in other ways as well. Okay, so number one, let's say you do everything right, you set the bar super high, you give her the right boundaries, healthy boundaries, you help her understand what she wants in a man, but she chooses a guy that you just do not care for. This happens all the time. I think part of it is she's still figuring things out. She's young. She really doesn't know what she wants. And probably this is somebody who gave her attention and she's excited to be an adult and be a woman and get to go on dates because she's dreaming about marrying a guy and being in love, and maybe she's romantic about these things. That's very common for the female brain. So I just want to say that because you might have done everything right. Just because she's dating someone you don't like doesn't mean like you messed up and failed in all these ways, right? So there's that. But what can you do? You are action oriented. You want a plan. So let's talk about what to do and what not to do. First, what not to do. I would say don't go on the attack and on the offense and tell her she's not allowed to see him, you don't like him, you don't approve of him, block him now. And the reason I don't like this is because I think from the daughter's perspective, that attack can come off like you don't trust her. And we just talked about boundaries, right? That is the rule side of things. That is not a healthy boundary. So what can you do instead? Well, at the end of the day, I think when your daughter is in a relationship with somebody that you think is not worthy of your daughter, maybe it's a situation where she needs to increase her confidence, because once she feels a stronger sense of self-worth, then she might make the decision on her own that he is not worth her time. So I think number one, first and foremost, do anything you can to help build her confidence and just continue to be there for her and take her out on dates, talk to her, treat her the way that you want this guy to treat her. Do all the things that we talked about. Just continue to build her confidence, build her sense of self-worth, encourage her, tell her that she is so amazing and that you're so proud of her and that she should be so proud of herself, and really make her feel good, okay? The other thing that I would recommend is be really curious about the relationship. Ask good questions that help her think about the relationship as well. I've asked people before, what are your favorite parts about so-and-so? And there was one girl who could not think of a single thing that she liked about her boyfriend. And I think that exercise helped her realize that she actually didn't like him. So asking the right questions, asking about his goals in life, the way that he treats her, being curious about those things, but helping her say it out loud so that she actually might recognize, oh, you know what, actually, I don't really like how he has no plan, or I don't really like how he treats me that way, right? It just might help her have awareness around what you see so clearly. And I will say it is so clear from the third party lens. Like there's a lot of relationships that I've seen too with my friends or acquaintances or, in movies, right? Like you see it and you're like, this is so obvious. But when you're in a relationship with somebody that might not deserve you or might not be a good fit for you, it's sometimes really hard to see. And so just kind of bringing attention through the right questions would be my best piece of advice. Okay, so what about when a relationship like that ends, or when a really healthy, beautiful, amazing relationship ends and your daughter is heartbroken? What do you do? Well, I think it's human nature for men to want to solve problems. So you want to help her stop crying. You want to help her feel better. And so a lot of men jump to the problem solving mode, which is great for them. And that's how they might approach a situation like that and feel better. But for women, we're so emotional. And what we really need is just to let ourselves feel our feelings and feel supported through that situation. And so by you giving her the biggest hug and telling her that you love her and that you're here for her, that's what she needs to hear. She wants some stability and security. And you can provide that for her by just showing up and just being there to listen and letting her know that she can talk to you about anything and that you love her so much and that she's amazing. That's what she wants in those situations. And I think a great example, both my sisters were broken up with recently, and my dad was there for them. He stopped everything he was doing when he found out, and they were both home at the time. He gave them a big hug and just let them cry it out. And I'm even like starting to get emotional thinking about that scene, but he was really there for them and they felt it. And they have told that story on our episode that I interviewed them and just to a lot of people because it really meant a lot to have him with them. And one of my sisters didn't really want to talk about it at the time. But he showed her that he would be there for her no matter what. He made her a bowl of her favorite ice cream and just dropped it on her door and told her that he loved her and that he's there for her. And she was able to feel his support. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we want, is just to feel supported when we have recently felt unsupported by the breakup. Another great anecdote comes from an interview that I did with a daughter for Girl Dad the Book. And she was talking about a time in which her boyfriend cheated on her, and so they broke up. But when she found out that he cheated on her, she was devastated, and she actually came to her dad, and he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He hugged her, he let her cry it out, he told her he was there for her. And he said that when an insecure guy is with an amazing girl, sometimes they don't feel worthy of the relationship, and they do things to make themselves feel better. So it's not on her, it's on him. And I think that that was such an amazing thing to say. That was the perfect way to word it because it didn't tell her, you can do better, or, you don't need to cry about this. Like, you're better than him, because that, while that has the right intention behind it, it actually doesn't do anything to help the feelings of the woman at the time. What her dad did was he shifted the narrative, and it helped her get over it and move on. And now she is with the most amazing guy who her dad loves. And I just think it's a great story. So keep that in mind if that unfortunate situation ever does happen with your daughter. So just to recap all of our conversations today, number 1, set your daughter up for success in her relationships by setting proper examples, both with her and with your partner. Number 2, set healthy boundaries for your daughter in her relationships. And number 3, we talked about how to navigate situations that are uncomfortable and unfortunate, but that a lot of dads do have to go through. So I hope this was really helpful. As always, happy for any feedback or any suggestions for future deep dive episodes. I am always here also for private consulting calls. If you have any situations you want to discuss, feel free to reach out via email or DM. Thank you so much for tuning in and have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in to Girl Dad the podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow girl dad. I read every review and truly take your words to heart. To close out, remember, your intentional moments make lasting legacies. See you next week.